to home. Now find your bulletin. And after the order of worship, you'll find the page that's marked Welcome to Saugatuck Church. Right after the words of welcome, you see 4 lines in bold. This is our vision statement, our elevator speech, our particular answer to the question, what is God calling us to do? Friends, I invite you to read these 4 lines out loud with me now. We are a community of Christ, welcoming all people, learning to love and serve God and neighbor. Again, I ask, how are we doing? Does that sound like our Saugatuck Church? Are we welcoming all people, loving God and neighbor, serving God and serving neighbor? Friends, this morning I invite you to take some time to contemplate the ways and places that we are doing that, for I do believe we are doing it. To think back over the last year, and to find the ways and the places that we are being the church of Jesus. I'm going to ask you downstairs during our annual meeting to offer up out loud some of the ways and places that we are fulfilling that vision. So I'm giving you fair warning. We'd start thinking about it now. Here's what I know. The answer to that question, are we being the church God in Christ calls us to be? The answer is always both yes and no. On the one hand, there is a resounding yes. Beloved members and friends of Saugatuck Church, you are a faithful people. What you do in God's house, the praying and playing, serving and studying, welcoming strangers and deepening your covenant one with another, the art shows and the music, the mission trips and the feasts, the story tent and the food collections, these are all expressions of the church we have said that we want to be. This is good news, my friends. It is good news indeed. But there is also always a no. Because just like those temple officials, just like the writer of the psalm, our purpose can sometimes get lost in the shuffle. For whatever God has in store for us, we're not there yet. And here's the twist in the gospel story today. Because Jesus didn't just suggest that the temple officials needed to return to their original purpose, the one that had been articulated 500 years ago and more. Jesus wasn't just telling them to get better at doing what they were supposed to be doing in the first place. Jesus announced that the role of the temple was about to change completely. That this way of doing church was about to pass away. These practices, which were good and faithful ways of relating to God in previous generations, those won't serve the next generation, Jesus said. This building will no longer be the temple. Instead, he said, I am the temple, and you will meet God through me. Here's what that tells me. Not only do we need to revisit our purpose, friends, we need to reimagine it. To prayerfully listen to God in the world around us and ask over and over and over again, what does it mean to be Jesus' church now? And how about now? And how about now? And we recognize that the answer will change, has already changed, and surely will change again. The good news is embedded in that same statement of faith we just read on the back cover of the hymnal, in the very last lines of that statement of faith. And they say this: "You promise to all who trust you forgiveness of sins and fullness of grace, courage in the struggle for justice and peace, your presence in trial and rejoicing, and eternal life in your realm, which has no end." Forgiveness of sins, fullness of grace, courage in the struggle, presence in trial, eternal life. Beloved, we do not need to go on a pilgrimage to find the one who calls us into relationship. He comes to us, here in God's house, and there when we walk out the front door, and Christ meets us here at the table. He comes to us in our discerning and in our growing, in our stumbling and in our recalibrating, meeting us right where we are and calling us to be the most faithful church we can be. To that I say, thanks be to God. Amen.